Welcome back to the Curate for Women Network. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. My name is Victoria Armstrong, and today we are with Miss Courtney Scott, aka Courtney Hustle. Period. All right, we're gonna start with this. So I have a word, and I want you to give me the definition or what comes to your mind when you think about this word, which should be very easy for you. What comes to mind when you hear the word hustle?
Woo! How did I not know that was going to be the word? Man, the word hustle is about pursuit. It is about consistency. It is a state of mind. It is a foundation, right? And there's a love-hate relationship with that word, actually, for me. But now it's so funny that hustle is this mantra that the world accepts and loves. Mm-hmm. And when I got dubbed the nickname Courtney Hustle, I kind of was afraid of it for a while because the word hustle had like such a negative connotation. Mm-hmm. But now I just learned to embrace it. And it's all those things.
So how has that evolved for you over the years? Even before I've known you.
Yeah.
I've only known you as Courtney Hustle. I knew you as Courtney Hustle before I knew your actual last name.
Yeah, most people do. And I'm saved in many people's phones as Courtney Hustle. And I think I got the word, or the name rather, maybe in like 2008, 2009, mm-hmm. right? And it started off with me dubbing this word hustlicist, which is hustle and publicist together, because that's the foundation of my career track and things. So the hustlicist was how I pursue getting my clients awareness, putting them out there. And it's like, if you want drive, if you want a person to just really work for you, I'm your person. And then I was talking to someone and she's like, it doesn't brand you enough. And I said, what do you mean? And I was like, well, how will I do that? Like, what do I do? And she said, we're just gonna call you Courtney Hustle. And it's been there ever since.
I like hustlicist, but I feel like she kind of gave you like, you remember Mean Girls when they were like, stop saying fetch. Fetch is not a word. Hustlicist is not a word. It's not a word. I feel like because it's not catchy. Courtney Hustle is definitely, it has grown on you, and that is really, truly a part of like the fabric of who you are.
Absolutely.
Over a decade of business management.
That's right.
Communications, integrated marketing leadership-ish, and now you are currently serving as the it's a long title, so can you please?
Very long title.
Okay, tell us what you do right now.
I am the go-to person for Mayor Broome. One of 3 go-to people for Mayor Broome for a particular portfolio of work. But the very long title, the government title, is Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. And it's basically a senior advisor, strategic director for certain areas that she assigns to her team.
So what does that look like for you? There's a lot of elements to this. So there's the political side, obviously. There's the community-based side, which I feel like you're more passionate about that. And then there's a lot of like people management and strategy that goes into what you do. So let's start there.
Absolutely.
What does that look like?
You're so right. The community part is my heart. I feel like that's God's gift to me and his call for service. If you know anything about Mayor Broome, and today we're gonna call her Sharon Weston Broome because it's that woman, right?
Yes.
So Mayor is amazing. Mayor, you're amazing. But that woman, Sharon Weston Broome, is just a powerhouse, and I'm so grateful to glean from her, learn from her, and to be able to serve her vision through my lens. That's a gift for work, right? So day to day, it is administrative. It is serving our community through basic services and things for government, connecting to grants, looking at opportunities to improve systems in disinvested neighborhoods. I mentioned that everyone has an assigned portfolio of work. So mine is community-led public safety. So getting community at the forefront of keeping our community safe, hopeful, and healthy. It is our youth initiatives and also connecting community to government services. And then there's a lot of other things too, like information services and connecting people to trash services and all that good stuff. But yeah.
Why do you feel so connected to this work, to the community side of it?
Yeah. I remember I wrote a postcard. I was in a session with Raymond Jetson, another person that I'm fortunate enough to call a mentor. And he asked our leadership development class why we exist to serve. And on this card, I just wrote to make impact for people who don't even know that they deserve certain things, or to be a voice for people who think that their voice don't matter. I don't even know that I knew what that meant. I just kind of let God lead the pen. And now marrying it to this work, when you serve in government, and Lord knows I never thought this would be my journey, but when you serve in government, it is an honor and privilege to like carry this fancy title, but there is an obligation as a public servant to ensure that you leave the place better than what it was whenever we leave this administration. That's something that the mayor preaches to me, and clearly is something that's just a part of my nature. So that's why the community part is so important, because when you look at Black and brown people, particularly in Baton Rouge, do we even know what our government can and should do for us?
Right.
I know that a lot of times we see advocates and activists and we need them, but we latch on to the cause of the day.
Right.
Versus knowing there are many, many causes. That one
Right.
just rose to the top for that instance. And community needs to know how they get the benefit of their government. And I think that matters to me, right? How we can create better places. Honestly, we can solve our culture's problems with government at the helm of it. And I think that's why I'm so connected.
I feel like people do really well in community spaces when they see themselves in the people that they serve.
That's right.
So
That's
were
true.
you ever a person who felt like you lost hope in
Absolutely.
a circumstance?
Yeah.
Or you felt undeserving of resources and privileges and stuff like that? Like,
Yeah.
how does, because I know you said God led the pen, but then like, how would you even know to be obedient to that if you had not felt that personally?
Come on, girl. Look at you telling me what's up, but I don't even know. Hearing you say those words, honestly, Victoria, resonate.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing a lot of processing lately, and what I think about is, in my life, I've never planned for Courtney. I've always just arrived or shown up.
Okay.
I've just
yes.
arrived and shown up, and look, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I just so happen to be that good. God bless me.
Yes, come on.
But I didn't plan. I didn't really put into it to do that. So when you say that, I've learned that that's a survival tactic. Because you didn't, somebody told you you shouldn't, or that you wouldn't.
Yeah.
And you start to like harden this shell, and you're just trying to get by. And for me, getting by just so happened to be great, because it's something that I always strove, I don't know if that's a word. I've always strived.
We're gonna make it a word today, bitch.
Right? I've always strived to be great, but even that's a survival tactic, right? And when it comes to that hustle piece, so I had to redefine that word. So honestly, to answer your question, yes. There was a space in life where you did not know what you could even do, so you don't dream.
Yeah. Oh.
Sometimes you're taught, when again you're raised in a Black or brown community, and it's like you're lucky enough to have, so just don't even try. You're doing too much. You're here, all right, now don't do too much. When no, we should be going for everything that's possible out there, and you should also know what is out there so you can dream bigger.
Who showed you that? Who showed you that it was okay to dream big? Who told you that it was okay to want more than what you saw?
Okay. I'm holding my necklace because my father, honestly. And it's ironic because a fact that some people do know about me or do not, and there's no reason why people do or don't, is that my father raised me probably 80 to 90% of my life from the federal penitentiary.
Wow.
So while he was in a place like a caged animal, he still dreamed so big for his child.
Yeah.
And his friends would tell me that he still felt so much joy despite his circumstance, because he was watching his visions play out through me.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time. It's just, it's that voice in my ear, literally, because we were on the phone. Mm-hmm. I would get these 15-minute sessions of my father just inspiring me and telling me what I could do. And honestly, something that I didn't appreciate until after he passed away and all I had left for the memory of those conversations is how much he was actually pouring into me and how much I didn't appreciate those visions and dreams and thoughts that he had for me. And then they started to manifest into life. And I've had some great mentors along the way that have always pushed me and guided me and opened these doors and these windows that I didn't think existed. But when you peep out that window and you see that light and that opportunity to just be great, how can I not?
Yeah. Courtney, did you ever feel like having these conversations with your dad, 15 minutes at a time, very inspiring, but did you ever feel like you couldn't really trust him because of where he was while giving you this advice?
Honestly, I had are you in my head? There's a period of resentment that I've had as an adult. Not while he was there. I would just talk with him and fuss him. You don't get it and you don't understand. When he follow up, did you do what I tell you to do? Did you look into this? And I'm like, Dad, no, you can't, right? But sometimes as an adult, and I'll find myself doing this, I talk to myself a lot, and sometimes I'm talking to people or my ancestors, which just so happens to be my father and others. And I say, how dare you push me to this and then not give me all of the tools? How dare you create this thing in me and surround me and leave me with people who don't appreciate it? But that's where my work came in.
Yeah.
That's where I had to arrive and I had to show up.
Yeah.
So that's some of the thoughts that I've had, but you got to just work through it.
Yeah.
Feelings and emotions are something that will never go away. And nobody tells you need to learn how to deal with those things, right? But when you do, you just get better and stronger.
Oh man, I hate that I just had two questions merge at the same time. So first question is, how do you deal with that now? There's a lot of, as you're evolving, as your career is growing, I'm sure there's some questions that you want to go back and talk to your dad and be like, oh my gosh, if I could just have one more conversation with him. Yeah. What is that? Is it more emotional space that you need from him that you feel like right now is if I'm missing the most of him, what is it?
What did he see? Who did he see?
Yeah.
It's a puzzle that a part of me wants to say I'm left with figuring out, but it is a puzzle that I'm blessed to keep building.
Yeah.
And, I always put part of that hustle now is you got to get to the end. Mm-hmm. So you're always trying to figure it out and put yourself there and be in the right place at the right time. There is no way you can plan all of that, right? But the one question that I sometimes think is if I could ask my father, if I would have had that appreciation then, what is it that you see in me?
Yeah.
Right? What is it? Who is it?
Yeah.
And then when I look back and I think about the things that I'm doing now, we talked a lot about entertainment, but a lot of the lessons and things that he gave me can honestly transcend through any career, through any layer of life. But again, like my dad, it's always a lesson.
Yes.
It's that lesson to come back and I gave you everything that you need.
Yeah.
And that's also trusting your spiritual father, because God tells you that too. You don't get to have the whole story. That's where the trust comes in.
Yeah.
And studying the word and understanding and continuing to grow.
I think that your dad was probably also teaching you in hindsight. He now had the opportunity to sit back and say, no, I see this in you because I miss this in myself.
Oh, yeah.
And so if I can help it, I'm not going to let you miss it. And I think that's beautiful. But also, I was watching this fireside chat between T.D. Jakes and Stephen Furtick.
Yeah.
And T.D. Jakes said, well, we're always looking for God, give me the house, or God, and I'm paraphrasing because I could be messing this up. But what I gather from it is he says, God gives us trees and you have to figure out how to build a house with that tree.
That's right.
You have to figure out what to do with the tools that he gave you, because he can't give you everything.
Yeah.
I think that he's just going to continue to just pull you through.
Yeah.
And I do believe that if you didn't have your dad at the time that you did,
Yeah.
the foundation would have never been laid.
Absolutely. And
Right?
his circumstances
Yes.
being different would have changed the foundation being laid.
For sure.
And when I think about the justice system, there's so many emotions. But the one thing that I can say is he had a lot of time to think. And I'm so grateful that he put that time towards thinking about me. But I also have an amazing mother as well. I talk about my dad a lot, but I have an amazing mother that also laid the foundation, and those two together, child, while they didn't work, it balanced out in the seed that they produced, right?
Yeah.
But one thing about that, when you were talking about God giving you the trees, Alice used to say, and I don't know who told her this, but Alice always tells me, God gives you 5 senses, you better use them. Which means, like, no, it's not just about prayer and the word, but use those senses, use those context clues. That means you have to really be centered and aligned to God's word to see what he's laying out in order for you to do the work to manifest, right? He gives us so much, but there's this small part that we do have to do. And sometimes the do is just falling back, but that's a whole different word for a different day.
Yeah, because also you have to be sensitive to know when you hear him, because I also heard this the other day. I was like, man, I guess I never thought about this, but what does God's voice sound like to you?
Whew,
The audible version of it, what does it sound like to you?
Honestly, it is a fatherly voice. I think that sometimes I honestly may make it my father's, right? And while I was idolizing this man, it honestly was God working through this man and his own redemption that I got to be a fruit of, right?
So good. I promise we're gonna move off from your dad, but I think you just said something that made me think about this. I say this all the time, to like take your purpose away from people.
Yes.
And I think that when you don't take your purpose away from people, God will take that, he will remove that person.
He will.
Because he's a jealous God, and he's like, no, I see you idolizing somebody that I'm using to give you this. And so let me refocus. Did you ever resent God for taking your dad away?
I don't think I ever resented God for taking my dad away, because my mother has taught me that God's word says that we are here for a short period of time. So that is something that you just have to learn to embrace.
Yes.
I think I rebelled against embracing it, but I know that people are always only here for a time. Everything that we do has a clock on it,
Yes.
right? And it's something that you have to embrace, but also not let overpower you or take over your mind, because I'll do that at times, right? There's times where I'm trying to make things so perfect, or I'm trying to meet this deadline and I have to do this, and I just have to sit back. That's the biggest thing for me. So I think that I rebelled against what I knew, or I get in my feelings about it, but not
Is that
resentment.
grief when you say you rebelled?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It is grief. It is.
Do you still rebel against it?
No, I think that I sit in it.
Okay.
Right? One thing about rebellion is if you hold on to it too long, or you sit in it too long, you'll never produce the fruit that was supposed to come out of it. Rebellion is an act to either get the attention, bring awareness to, connect to. There's a purpose in it, and you have to get that purpose, so you can't just sit in it and own that space.
I love that you said rebel and not grief. When you say the word rebel versus grief, because grief can be this all-encompassing thing.
Yeah.
But your grief looks like rebellion. It's like, I'm not accepting this. And even though I know that I have to accept it, there's certain things about acceptance that's not going to be that for me.
Yep. And honestly, not even grief being different for different people. Grief looks different for us.
Yeah.
In different moments.
Yeah.
It is not singular.
Yeah.
A lot of things are not singular. Feelings
Yeah.
and emotions are not singular.
Yeah.
And that's just something that you have to come to terms with.
Yeah, well, it's funny that you said that, because I have experienced grief on so many levels, so many different times. I've experienced a lot of like sudden deaths in my family, and like freak accidents and things like that. And it's like, there's always that moment of like, do I really have to accept this? Like, so sometimes I will refer to people as if they were still here.
Yeah.
or, you know, I would only reflect on the good memories that we had and all things that like I have a friend, she passed away, but we ran through a rough patch and we literally mended our relationship right before she passed away.
Yeah.
And it was like this hard acceptance.
That's right.
When she died, and that's what I felt like, like I was rebelling against her passing away.
You talked about grief, and clearly in this moment, we've used context of people physically leaving this earth.
Yeah.
More recently, I've even had to experience grief of people who are still living.
Yeah.
And the loss of friendship, relationship, connection, the transition of time. Evolution is a very serious thing. And as I evolve and accept that evolution, I never thought about some of those things that came along with it. And one of the hardest things that I've had to do recently is honestly grieve a transition in a relationship with someone. And it was hard, you know, and especially because you still have to be in spaces. And when you think about people who may have a divorce or, you know, breakups in relationships, those are grieving moments too, which is why it looks different for everyone. And you just have to take the time to do the inner work and also understand that it's not a time thing, it's not a one-time thing. And you just got to be prepared to, again, process and feel those emotions.
Yeah. Grieving a person that is still living I feel like it's harder than grieving a person that's deceased.
Absolutely. Because you may not get what you're seeking ever. You may have to come to terms with your feelings and never know if those feelings are right or wrong or what happened. And you just have to be okay with it. And it does not happen overnight.
Yeah.
It does not happen immediately. But I think grace, forgiveness are huge words that you may have to forgive someone. And we talked about resentment. I think that's where I felt it.
Yeah.
Is resentment and grief of people who may still be on this earth or still here.
Yes.
And building a way to exist without being bitter, without being angry, never getting an apology that you may think you deserve.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Processing it, right? So it's just something that you have to do. And I'm just so grateful that I have matured to a place that I don't ever have to have an apology from people who hurt me.
Yeah.
I just need to understand my part.
Do you give apologies to people who you've hurt?
I do believe in it because there's so many apologies that I didn't get.
Yeah.
And I seek to understand how I have hurt people.
Yeah.
But listen, everybody's not ready for that, right?
Yeah.
Relationships are a tough thing. And I've understood that sometimes you may have to apologize for something that you didn't even know you were doing wrong.
Yes.
And you have to learn from it.
First of all, yes, that's a whole new level of maturity.
Yes, it is.
That I do feel like I'm there. But also, it's like, you know that feeling when you apologize to somebody that you've hurt, but then you feel like, I think you think that I was really just wrong by myself in this situation. Yeah. And so even though you've matured to a place where you're like, well, I don't necessarily need an apology anymore from people who have hurt me. What does that look like when you apologize to somebody that you know that you've hurt, but you're not getting an apology back from them?
You have to get over it. That's not why you did it.
Oh, Lord.
And it's tough. Let me tell you something. I don't know that Courtney 6 months ago would have gave the same answer. But as you continue to go through things and you learn it and you understand it, but it's the journey of self.
Yes.
And the apology for me is something that you have to come to terms with. But then you know what else too? Sometimes you have to give yourself the apology that nobody gave you.
Come on.
Because you may have had a part in that. For yourself though, how did you allow it? How did it even come to pass? Was it emotions that you allowed to go over? Like for me, channeling all this hustle inside of me, right? That sometimes comes out as anger or too assertive or too aggressive, and balancing that, right? Because there's so much in me that sometimes I realize that outwardly it doesn't come out well. And then the space that I'm in recently with the job and the work and the pressures sometimes spill over to other people. And I had to wake up to see it. And thankfully I had enough people around me that loved me and cared about me as a person enough to say, hey sis, this is not working.
Do you ever feel lonely in this space?
All the time. All the time.
So what does your tribe look like when you have those moments? Do you feel like you have the words? Do you feel like you're equipped to say, like if somebody asks you today, how you doing, Courtney? And if you're really lonely, do you actually say, I'm actually not well right now?
Sometimes.
Who do you say that to? Don't say their names, but like, who are these people to you? Are they your friends? Are they your family? Is it your mom?
Yeah. Transparency moment. You're pulling out of me today. We didn't sign up for this. We didn't talk about this. Those answers are shifting right now. I have been blessed to have the most amazing people in my life, biologically, chosen and adopted. And I have had to learn how to lean on them. But I've also had to challenge myself to measure who needs to be where. Because there were some people that I was leaning on that I probably was leaning on too much.
Yeah.
To where they couldn't in turn lean on me. It wasn't this balance and equilibrium where we were leaning on each other in areas.
Did you lose those people? Are they still a part of your life?
They're still a part of my life. But I think some things shifted and I had to assess why. And it's funny because some of them may see this and they're like, we never talked about it. But it wasn't about them. I just needed to understand that. I also think my mother more recently, and it's so ironic because my mom and I have had a true Black mother-daughter relationship.
Toxic?
Yes.
Kinda.
Yes. Okay. But she, again, I have two parents who always saw these things in me. And from my mother, I just never agreed with a lot of the things that I think she wanted to see in me. Yeah. All those things manifested. Yeah. I never wanted them. Talk about rebellion and didn't even know it. Yeah. But now as a 41-year-old woman, my mom is definitely one of the top first people that I could call. And I prayed for that. And I don't even know how we got here, right? But I love it and I enjoy it. And I just love her for loving me and having my best interest in heart.
Yeah.
Even when it's against me.
Yeah.
She'll check me behind me.
Yeah. But I think that you get to that place because the older you get, the more you start to see your mom in you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you get to see this and you don't have kids.
Right.
I think that if I had never had children, I would have never understood my mom.
Right.
And to a certain extent, I still don't.
Right.
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 We are so very different, but then we are so very much alike.
But clearly your mom was great.
She is great. I couldn't fully understand or accept how great she was because like you said, like that typical Black mom-daughter relationship that we had, I feel is pretty toxic. But I mean, she may not feel that way. Yeah. She may look at this and be like, girl, you're being hella dramatic. And I'm not. Okay. She probably know that too. But anyway.
Alice is going to say to me, when y'all were talking and y'all said it was toxic, what that mean? And y'all was putting my
business. Correct.
Mama, we're not putting your business
because
out.
Toxic to that generation is fighting words. Yeah. Well, I say that generation, Courtney, because you just shared with me off camera how old your mom was.
Yeah.
Tell me, tell them, how old is your mom?
My mother is turning 80 in January.
Mama, don't kill her.
No, she doesn't.
I feel like
she
that's
doesn't
just
care.
very
She doesn't care
to know.
My mother is 80. And honestly, it kind of dawned on me, like we celebrated her birthday last year and it's so petty of me because I was like, we should have waited. I should have did it last year. I should have waited till this year.
Yeah.
But I was like, we got to do this big thing. But honestly, around the time that she turned 75, I knew that we would celebrate every year. That's a gift.
I feel like every generation evolves a little bit.
Yeah.
I think we're in the generation that's evolving a whole lot all at once. And I think that that's why anxiety is at such a high because we're so aware of ourselves.
Yeah.
I don't think that it was like undiagnosed then. I think that we're just more self-aware than our parents were and our grandparents were. And so when your mama hear toxic, that's really fighting words. When my mama hear toxic, she like, you being dramatic, but she gonna think about it and she gonna be like, oh, well, you know, I could see that a little bit for me. I will never publicly say the name that we've coined for our moms who act like this.
Yes.
Because it's a whole name.
Yeah.
But my mom, she would not like that. She's not gonna like it, so I'm gonna leave it.
Well,
I'm gonna leave it be.
Code name. I have a code name for my mom when she gets in those moments, and I call her Marie.
Well, my mama's name is Dolores, and I actually didn't even make that up for her. When I was cheering at Southern, I used to be like, girl, bye. And, I would.
That's the relationship. That's right.
Okay, and so my teammates used to be like, girl, quit talking to Dolores like that. And I'm like, who is Dolores? And they're like, that's your mama. We don't know her name, but she sounded like Dolores.
That's right.
And it never went away.
And that's how
her
Alice
name in everybody's phone.
That's
Dolores.
how Alice became Marie. My mom's name is Alice.
But why Marie? Yeah. Marie don't sound toxic. Marie sounds like
Marie,
the mama that we call on when we need her.
Well, that's your Marie.
Oh. Yo, Marie sounds like she had her life together. But apparently not in your head.
Or so we thought.
So, okay, let's shift a little bit, because me talking about this made me think about this question.
Yeah.
What do you think people underestimate about you the most?
Where are you going with all of this today? Jeez. I think the one thing that people probably underestimate about me the most, because I think I live very out loud. Mm-hmm. I think that anyone that works with me intimately knows the push and pull to get to a beautiful finish. Mm-hmm. I think that people don't know that I'm actually very emotional. Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask you that.
Very introverted. And to be quite honest, same as emotional, but a little more outward. I feel everything. I don't like tough conversations. I don't like unhappy endings, right? Even though I may play my part in those, I don't like it. And I want it to be fixed, and I want everything to be well for everyone, and I want everybody to win.
Yes. I can see that in you. So this is a very vulnerable space for me and you, because I feel like this part of this conversation might actually make you uncomfortable, because I was like, I'm not going to talk about this, but I am. Yeah. We had a very tough conversation one day.
We did.
And when I got off the phone, I was like, oh no, I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm going to call Courtney. She ain't coming on the, I was like, we going to be done with this. But you came right back with an apology, and you were like, I acknowledge where I was wrong in this. But you also said something to me in that conversation that I was like, this is definitely how I want people to see me, but it's not how I feel on the inside. Yeah. You said that, we're very type A personality. And I was like, yeah, my inner being, like the person who, because I could channel, there's a lot of people that I want to channel and show up as that person. And I feel like maybe it's this work that makes me show up in this way. Because most people that know me, they don't think that about me. And so a part of me was like, dang, Courtney really don't know me. But then a part of me was like, yes, come on, type A. Yeah. Okay, I could be her.
Yeah.
Because I look at people like you who are not afraid to stand up for yourself. And so I know that you say that, like, that's the part of you, your softness, essentially, is what I got from that people underestimate. I don't know if it's the softness that people underestimate about me. Sometimes I think it's like the bulldog that could really come out of me is what people underestimate the most about me. But that's also the part of me that I am not willing to share with a lot of people. Yeah. Right? And so it's like when I get to that place, I'm like, we're gonna have to resolve this. Right. And I'm happy that we did. Yeah. Because you are somebody that I really do adore, and you are somebody who I feel like your story matters to a lot of people. I feel like your story can be very healing to a lot of people. And because people underestimate your softness, I feel like they don't appreciate all of you if they don't have an opportunity to be in your inner space. And I know that vulnerability comes from this level of trust that you have to have with people. But when people don't know the vulnerable side of you, then they can't appreciate you. And in the work that you do, sometimes I feel like people have to appreciate that part of you because you're in the community. Well, and if you're this bulldog in the community all the time, you know what I mean? It's like they're either very intimidated by it, or they're turned off. They're just like,
Yeah.
how's she in the community and she don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I think that you said so many things, and one, I want to honor the moment that we had, and I am happy that you brought it up, right? And I did wonder. I was like, I don't know if we're gonna do this, because it was a rough conversation from both of us, I think. But you know, yeah, I'll take my part in it. But this is what I'll share. I think, like, when I talked about awareness, I saw the conversation that we had going there, and then. Again, when I say it's not about you, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just shift it and we'll just have it later so it doesn't go there. And then it ended up going there anyway. But I think it's because, again, it is not about you, what you're doing, your intention. You could have the best of intentions. Let me tell you what working in the community will teach you. Your intentions can be so good, but if you don't take the time to get to know the space, the environment, and what is actually happening, not from your lens.
Right.
It will be taken out of context.
Yes.
And community has taught me a lot. And I do have to be vulnerable in this space. And that's something that, quite honestly, you'll hear me now talk a lot about heart and hustle. Because hustle was this one-sided mission.
Yeah.
It had one
Black and
lens,
white.
one view, you get to the end. And as long as the end was successful for you, who cared about how it felt? For me personally, for other people. And that's not the way.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that. And now when you start to lead with your heart first, when your heart leads, one, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
And you're out there.
Yep.
And this last year has been tough for me because a lot of my vulnerability was attacked, challenged, dragged through the mud out loud. And in the space that I sit in, nothing could be done about it. And to be honest, I just had to like take some of it, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, when I go back to God and he says, that's okay. It means nothing. And then you thank God for those folks who are covering you and speaking your name when you're not there. That's when you have to lean on that circle. And it all comes back to, one, knowing how your softness and your tough exterior have to balance out.
Yeah.
It's a yin and a yang. And then you talked a lot about what's your toughness and your bulldog being inside of you. I think for Courtney, the Courtney hustle, the pursuit in that like glamorous bulldog is what people love and want to tap into, and the result. And in the space that I work in, I do have to be the tough person. And sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be that person in the room. And the people around me are saying, but that's why we need you here. So you have to learn how to channel that, chisel it, appreciate it, buff it out, shine it up, maybe change the paint, make the chips look like it's a part of the package. And it comes that way.
So this evolving woman
Yes.
who is becoming more self-aware.
Yeah.
You're doing the work to heal the parts of you that were hurt, that you didn't even know were
Or
hurt,
that I left exposed.
that you left exposed. Most people, because we're about to shift into your dating life. I'm about to get in your business.
Clutching my pearls.
So when you are, because when you're not aware of these things, people become predators on you in that part of your life. Now that you've become or are becoming, because that's a moving target. Like, because now you're here.
Yeah.
But now that you've gotten to this place, what does that look like for you with dating? Are you a lot less tolerant of things, or have you become more patient with people? In the dating space.
I think that's so funny. So entering my 40s, I really hadn't been on a lot of dates, right? People that I've had any type of romantic, non-platonic involvement with have been either friends or friends of friends. So you spend a lot of time together, or you're in these group settings, and then you're intentional about those dates. But I mean a date where it's like a first date with a stranger, where it went through a phone conversation and you got to know each other, and then you wanted to spend in-person time together. Oh, so I'm trying to welcome this dating life, soft life, and bring it in. And I just try not to overprocess it, right? And let it be what it's going to be. And to know that a lot of men think women in their 40s are like only looking for this long-term situation. It's like, actually, brother, not really. I just wanted to enjoy the time. And then that becomes a thing, right? Then it's like,
so now you feel played.
Yeah, so now you feel played, or, it's a situation where
you only feel played because this is what you were thinking that you were about to do to me. But I sunned you first. I won.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's not a game like that. So then that's my point. Like, it's not a game like that for you anymore. It's like, I'm fully leaning into what this 41-year-old woman wants.
That's right.
And it has nothing to do with your desires.
And you're a part of the exploration game. Yeah. Meaning that you can have a couple of dates, you can have a few conversations, and we may continue talking or we may not. Or you may be in a dating category, and then if it doesn't work out, I'll put you in the friend category.
Yeah.
And I think women have to know that that power is possible for us, right? It's like the man gets to choose, and the man chooses you, but you also get to choose the man.
So before, we were talking a little bit earlier, and you were saying that this guy was kind of pursuing you in a way that you don't really even want to be pursued.
That's right.
How do you want to be pursued? Do you know?
I think I know a little bit. I don't know all the way, right? And when I'm with my married friends who tell me their journey, and I'm like, oh, I'm not there yet. I have more things to add to my list. But the one thing I know is that I am a who and not a what. The space that I work in oftentimes presents me as a what. And then let's be clear, my Instagram name is Watch, Court, Work.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what I put out there, but I do want people to get to know the woman, right? I do want people to get to know who I am and not make assumptions that because I am this type A, really assertive woman that I cannot be a submissive woman. To be honest, that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
I want a man that does have vision and dreams and interests for me to play that part for. I want to be very different than the world has gotten to know. And that's a sacred place for him.
Where do you think he at right now? You want to be a mama?
Well, let's talk about the parenting piece for a second. I want to be a mother with a family.
Okay.
A mother with a father.
You don't want to be a mama?
And a husband. I don't want to be only a mama. I don't want to be a single mother, right? And I know that that's a different thing because, again, it's about our culture. And when you spend so much time working every day to bring supports, wellness, and resolve to make things whole, I want to have a whole family. Yes. I was raised by a single mother. I had a father who was very much so a part of my life, but I want to know and live in a 2-parent household. Yep. And that's a thing for me. And that is a choice that I've made, that I want to be a wife before I become a mother. That is Courtney's choice. I have plenty of friends that went in different ways or didn't manifest at all, and their lives are great and they are super women. But that's not what I want to do. So yes, I do have passion and interest in being a mother, but I don't have to have that as a part of my life journey at this moment. I don't know if that's going to change, but I do want partnership.
Do you have any regrets about like a past dating situation?
Oh, girl, I have a few.
Past dating life?
I have a few.
Why?
Why didn't we make a safe word? Why didn't we make a safe word?
Okay, what's the safe word?
I don't know. Forget it. We're here now. But we should have made a safe word, okay? But yeah, I do have some regrets. Okay. But I'll tell you.
Are these regrets triggers for you? Because we don't have to talk about it.
No, I don't think that they're triggers.
Okay.
I think that the regrets, honestly, remember I talked about the fact that I never planned a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which means you don't put standards of excellence in place in your life.
Correct.
And dating is a space where I do think there's been a little bit of this is what came versus this is what I wanted. And remember you talked about those predators, right? You talked about putting yourself out there in a space where people see your vulnerabilities and you never did. People see your weak points and you never knew that they existed. I think those are some of the regrets, right? And probably that I gave some people way too much access to my life in certain areas and spaces. But you live and you learn, and it's all made me a greater person for who I am today.
So you said this, and that's beautiful, and perhaps that's the thought of why I never wanted to be married. I never wanted to be a mom and all those things. I say this on every episode, but just please know that I love my children. I definitely love my baby daddy, okay? But the reason why I feel like we were able to get here is because instead of my husband praying on those things, he actually prayed for those things with me. What it does is it opens up a lot of really uncomfortable conversations. And I think that marriage, true long-term relationships will expose every single thing about you.
That's true.
And for me, it takes a person that's going to genuinely love you, because those parts are so ugly.
That's right.
That it goes way beyond like what you physically look like. And they really have to, it's almost like when I think about my life of like, cause there's been different parts of things that have like evolved in me. When I look back on those times, it's like, if I had to physically give that girl a person,
Yeah.
she was how we view addicts or homeless people, or just somebody who looked and felt so unloved, but didn't even realize that I looked and I felt unloved. And so people could literally, they're like dogs, they could smell that
smell it
on
out.
you.
That's right. That's
And so
right.
they're like, oh, this is an easy target, because I know I don't want nothing serious, but I know that this person is vulnerable.
Yep.
And so I'm going to walk myself into this space, and then I'm going to walk out as soon as they
right.
start to figure this out about themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a beautiful thing that you are now at the place in your life where you can feel out these people who just don't mean you well.
Hopefully, right?
Well, because you said something too earlier on in our conversation where you were like, I asked you a question about your tribe, and you were like, well, it's funny because that's it's moving,
Yeah.
and it's evolving, and it looks different. And I think that if you're that like keen to your friendships,
Yeah.
it's gonna mean way more in a dating
That's right.
in setting, because for somebody to get that close to you, they would have to be your friend.
But guess what? I have to set those standards.
You do.
Right? And we talked about that before.
do.
What regrets look like is because I have to choose to set those standards of excellence. You have to choose to love you. And you just gave a great example, because you talked about a person being homeless or an addict or just like challenged. But here's the thing, what people don't know is that you can make this beautiful picture on the outside, and on the inside it can be so broken, and you can be so in tune to the outside. Social media will do that to you, right? This perfection, and that it's going well and it's great. And then if you've ever been in this space where it's like everything's going great, but you still feel bad, you have to honor that.
Yeah.
And you have to get in tune to that.
Yes.
So when you talk about a partner to do life with, there are going to be great days, good days, bad days. Y'all can put that little bleep right here, up days. And
You can say fucked up.
I don't want to. I got too many people that's gonna watch it. I'm gonna get in trouble. So you gotta have those days, right? And it's like, you gotta have those standards of excellence. And I'll tell you something else too. One of the downsides of the first man in your life being your father, but not physically there, is in those 15-minute conversations, sometimes I got to present what I wanted to him about me.
Yeah.
And I leaned so much on my parents to set the standards that I was living by their standards. So then you have friends, and sometimes you're looking at your friend that may be in front of you or around you and glowing, and then you start to live by their standard because you feel like that's gonna gleam, and that glow's gonna come on you, and those are okay things. But your standard has to be first. And I think that that's what you start to see in this growing and evolving Courtney Hustle is appreciation of who I am, giving myself space to be all the things that I admired.
Yeah.
And to give myself to put just as much energy into Courtney M. Scott as she puts into those clients, those friends, those projects, all those successes, put it inward.
Yep.
And that's something that I had to really, really work on, appreciate, and then understand what that means around me when I'm looking inward and everybody else is like, I'm here, I have these expectations, these are these things, and being okay with all the cookies that crumble around it.
We had another conversation where we were talking about like, do you have a church home? No. and like, I guess our feelings of actually belonging to a church, but I still belong to God. Like,
That's right.
he's still very much so, even more so now.
That's right.
Because now somebody's not telling me how to be in relationship with him.
Yes.
We're having to navigate this.
Yes.
On our own. And so we have daily conversations, me and God. And like all day, I'm like, even if I'm not like speaking out loud, I'm saying these things in my head. And some of the things that I say in my head, I feel like, and I'm not saying that. I asked you earlier, like, what does God sound like to you? And you said it's a fatherly voice. For you, it sounds like me. But I know when the power is there, and I know when it's not me, and that's when I speak it out loud.
That's
and
right.
I could even like hear God probing me to like say that out loud or write that down.
That's right.
And so I do. But I also have a partner and who helps me to stay spiritually. He's like my spiritual accountability partner. Who is that for you?
I have a few. And I'm so blessed to have a few. And the first thing that I want to share is I need everyone to remember, like everyone to remember, there is a reason why the word says when 2 or 3 are gathered.
Yes.
Because we get so stuck on the edifice, the body, the word on Instagram, and can I repost my pastor? And that's my pastor, right? And I don't even think that churches or people in church aim to be that.
Right.
But the business model is what's given me a distaste a little bit. So it is when 2 and 3 are gathered. And you have to have that. You have to have that piece. But those spiritual accountability partners, my goodness. Now, some people are going to watch this and be like, is everything in your life about, and that's why I won't call her by her title, but I'll say Sharon Weston Broom, because I'm so blessed to have a woman of God that has went through journeys, that is willing to share that with me as a woman, and also share the word and how that word has guided her. And she's that for a lot of people. So she's one of those for me. My therapist is actually very spiritually led. And we take time outside of our sessions to have spiritual conversations and talks. I have friends who have been in the word for a very long time, and we talk to each other, male and female. We challenge each other in the word. So when we're going through some very human, worldly issues, it's like God just testing you and bringing you back through this, and we give each other a word. And then also, Sarah Jakes and the entire Jakes family, listen,
truly bless my life
on a daily basis. And I know a lot of people probably have opinions about that church, but I'm talking about the word that God gives them and how they allow God to use them to deliver. And maybe because I'm not connected, it may not be that thing for me, but those are some of the accountabilities. And then honestly, my latest spiritual accountability partner is me and my journal.
Yeah. Oh, come. God. I don't even understand people I'm not judging people who don't journal, but I do. I don't understand it.
Some people don't know how. I've found that a lot. Some people that I've talked to do not know how to be at one with their thoughts. Some people are not writers. They're not expressors in that way. So they got to find a way. So that's our thing for them.
Okay, well then let me say this. I am a writer, so journaling is easy for me.
Me too.
Right?
Me too.
However, I have been journaling since way back, and this is something that I clearly get from my mom, because part of my offense with her as an adult is that...
Fix your face when you're talking about Dolores.
Child. In my little nosy middle school life, I've read my mom's journal.
Okay.
I thought about this as I'm like an adult, and I'm like, I'm very conscious about what I write about people in my journal.
That's right.
Because I never want anybody to find my journal and feel away, feel hurt, or feel whatever. But I do honor the fact that those are my mom's true feelings, and I'm happy that she had that outlet to do that and to say those things out loud. And so, writer or no writer, because sometimes when I don't have the words to write, I draw. Sometimes when I don't feel like writing, when I can't write, I am talking.
Yeah.
And so there's different ways to journal, but I think that the privacy of that and the secrecy, I I think the privacy of that is what I admire.
Yeah.
The secrecy of not journaling is what's dangerous for me, because I think that secrecy brings about shame. And the more that you hold to yourself,
that's right,
the least vulnerable you're able to be and the least connections you'll be able to make.
Yeah.
Now, I do believe that it takes a certain amount of trust to be vulnerable with people.
Yeah.
But there's a certain level of vulnerability that everybody deserves from you, or else they won't know how to connect with you. You'll never build this community of people because, one, you don't even know how to be empathetic with yourself.
Yeah.
You're still sympathizing with yourself when you refuse to talk about your feelings by yourself.
That's right.
Like, it's just you and you.
And that's why you got to journal. For me, that's what journaling was.
Yes.
It was me facing myself.
Yes.
Because one, get it out.
Yeah.
So don't just journal and get it out.
Yes.
But go back and read it.
Yes. Oh, well, hold on. Some of it I can't read. Some of it I will journal and then I delete it right after I say, because I just needed to get it out. But it's almost a sense of like burning it.
Yeah.
But I do agree. You journal and then you go back and read it and then so continue, because I like that. Keep going.
So for me, I needed to become more accountable to me. I talked a little bit about this leaning on other people, regardless of who they are. And that was a subconscious thing. I just recently realized how much I was quietly leaning. I don't think I ever vocalized it to them. I don't think that people even know sometimes when they're in my life what it means to me. But journaling keeps me accountable to me.
Yes.
It's a relationship with self. And to me, that is the most important relationship, because you got to love you through those good days, those bad days. And honestly, the journey to a life partner is you dealing with your stuff. Because that's why a lot of these marriages and situations don't work, because people are looking for other people to fix them, when there's a part that people can play in helping you heal, but you have to take the accountability to heal yourself. And it's not easy.
Let me tell you something that's funny. I was journaling. I had a journal years ago. And I wrote something in the journal about myself that I didn't like, that I definitely knew that I needed to fix this. This has to change about you, right? I had an argument with Ross. And he said something to me and I was highly offended. I was like, I just can't even believe that you would even say that. I need a moment, okay? Yeah. Going back, reading that journal, I was like, oh my God, I wrote this about myself.
Yeah.
And I never even shared that with Ross.
Yeah.
I don't think before this moment I was even mature enough to say that to him, because it ain't your business. You was not right. You were not right. But he was.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this thing about journaling brings about this level of self-awareness, but also accountability to yourself that nobody else deserves.
That's right.
There's certain things that I'm like, people just shouldn't even know this about me or you or whatever. And so, man, you really blessed me with it.
Your journal sometimes, though, is like your moment to say to myself, yep, that was me. I did it. And you may not be mature in that moment to take it, but you have to go back. But we have to learn how to honor ourselves.
Yes. And I'm going to say this again, because it's the secrecy for me. It is I'm writing this in my journal because I'm not yet ready to be vulnerable with anybody else about me with this.
Yes.
But I know that if I keep it on the inside of me, the enemy is going to use this against me.
Yes.
But the empathy that I'm able to share with myself then translates to the empathy that I'm able to have for other people. And this is why I am the least judgmental person ever. I don't care who you are, what you do. I appreciate everybody's story and I value and I honor everybody's story.
That's right.
Because of what's in my journal. Some of this will never ever see the light of day. Some of it shouldn't, but it's no longer a secret.
That's right.
Because it's out there. Like, I put it out there. I shared this with myself. And so,
you just opened up all the boxes today.
Good. Then I'm going to give you a whole bunch to journal about. Okay, so
good.
Before we finish this, I'm obsessed with Brene Brown.
Me too.
Oprah Winfrey, Sarah Jakes, her daddy, her mama, her sister, their whole family.
Yeah.
And so one of my favorite books right now is The Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown.
Okay.
And she says this in her book. It says, When someone shares their hopes and dreams with us, we are witnessing deep courage and vulnerability.
Wow.
Celebrating their successes is easy, but when disappointment happens, it's an incredible opportunity for meaningful connection. And I just so happened to look down at my phone, and it was on that. It was on that as we were talking about this. And so, God, you were so kind. I love that. So before we close this out, because I think that this conversation has been so good.
It's a lot.
So
it's a
happy
lot.
that we
I don't know if you knew this is what you were doing, but I know I didn't think this is what I signed up for. But I love
could
it.
just
I love
pretty
it.
much throw all these cards away because I was like, oh, I want it, but it's okay because we didn't get to have that on there. But I think this conversation, what I prayed on the way over here is that what we talk about, I just pray that it is healing.
It is.
To you and me and somebody who's watching it. I
That's
hope
right.
that it opens a new lens for anybody who's connecting with us today. To a young girl, to young Courtney, who is watching this, to a grown-up who is watching this, a grown woman who feels like I haven't fully tapped into my potential.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for her in terms of how to love herself in order to set appropriate goals to be that person to tap into her full potential?
Ooh. Let's start with young Courtney, right? Young Courtney, who is the little girl that didn't really understand what was happening around her. Her parents had so many life circumstances they were living. Mom was trying to find love, getting married, and we're moving to this place.
Yeah.
And dad was living through circumstances and systematic dysfunction and mass incarceration and the plight to destroy the black man. We'll get there another day.
Yes.
But then there's this child in the middle of all of that. I would say to her, you are not a product of your environment.
Yeah.
You are not a result of what's happening around you. That is just the start to catalyze you and to become your why. And you will not get to decide when that happens.
Yeah.
But just tuck that in your heart, and one day that's going to bless you. That's what I would tell that little Courtney. And then I would probably tell teenage Courtney. There are so many things happening to you, and you don't have to decide right now. You don't have to pick who you are and who you're going to be, and you do not have to choose a lane. You can fly, and you will land, right? And then I think to the woman that is looking for her way, as you said, and really trying to love herself, going back to our good friend Sarah, recently there was an episode where she brought out Dr. Anita, her good friend, and Dr. Anita talked about the trash and the stuff, and she wanted to use manure and all these things to fertilize grass, but she was like, it's gonna happen in 2 weeks. I did it. It's here. Don't let the world, the internet, and what's happening with everyone make you think that your journey has to unfold out loud right now when somebody else says it in this career. You don't have to make purpose out of your pain. Like, just live. And again, like I told little Courtney, it will unfold itself. Put it away. Do the work to you, in you, and sometimes that is behind closed doors. You don't have to make a moment out of everything. And also be a big girl and own up to your stuff. Because one thing that my dad used to tell me, and this is tough, but it's real, is that even when someone has wronged you, there's something that you did in that, or something that exists in that you have to work through, and why it could happen, what happened to you. Now that's some tough things to carry. I'm pretty sure some therapists are like, that is wrong. But in reality, that helps you process, right? It helps you process to know that there's a weak spot, a vulnerable spot, an open spot, something that you didn't do that you have to work on to ensure that your standards are higher. You put more boundaries in place. There are things that need to happen. So you got to own your stuff. And then I would just tell all versions of that little girl and woman, it is possible. you deserve it. You get to as well.
Yeah.
And that light is supposed to shine so bright, and don't let anybody else dim your light.
Yes.
What no one knows about that dimming light, it's not a person who's outwardly hating on you. Sometimes you gotta just be as bright and extra as you wanna be, and that's okay. I have a dear friend that we actually make fun of all the time because she is so extra. She will put on sequins, she will put on glam, but I love that about her because she owns what brings her joy.
Yeah.
And there is something that we have to glean about that.
Yeah.
Do you.
Yes.
And let nothing stop you.
Yes. Oh, I love it. I love it. Thank you for doing this with me today. Thank you for welcoming me into your beautiful home.
Thank you.
I think that being in my guest home, which is funny because I'm a guest in your home, but
we're in your space, honey.
Yeah, but I think that it just brings about this new level of like comfort and just like opening up and so thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being so courageous to tell this story.
Absolutely.
And still being in the space that you have to be in after you have this conversation. So
and I'm gonna do it.
Kudos to you, big girl. And thank you all for joining us today on the Curate for Women Network, and we will see you next time. Bye.